Happy Monday, everybody. Welcome to the Cluster Puck Podcast, part of the MHRT Network here at Center Ice. I am Nick. Beside me here, as always, is Brit. How was your weekend, Brit?
It was good. It's just the usual busy. It's been super hot here, and then we got rain, and everything got rained out, so we didn't have any scheduled events almost all weekend. We got a lot done in the house.
There you go.
The
I was about to say,
is significantly
plenty
shorter.
of free time. I was wondering. So our weather here in Utah has been kind of strange. Where every afternoon, I swear, it's been every afternoon for the last 2 weeks. We've just had these thunderstorms just roll right on in. Which it's not typical for us. Usually we tend to be pretty dry and hot, especially June, July, those types of months. But so far it's been like 20 degrees cooler, it feels like, and rain.
Yeah.
So
that's nice.
Very strange.
When we lived in St. George, Utah, we got like a ton of lightning and thunder with no rain, like all the time. I just remember tons of thunder there. I don't know. Did you listen to the NBR podcast today where there was like a huge lightning strike during the pod and like you could hear it literally shake the building? So apparently it's lightning and thunder. Yeah. It's
that's crazy.
Yeah.
I just want to have a good summer where I can go camping every weekend and not have to worry about it being outrageously cold and
Yep. It always rains when we go camping. It never fails. We could be in like a massive drought and it would still rain while we were
That's exactly right. Knowing our luck, that's exactly what's going to happen to us. I'm going camping here in a couple weekends, and I just want it to be dry. As long as it's dry, I can deal with whatever temperature comes. So.
Yep.
Okay, well, let's go ahead and get started. But before we do get started, don't forget to hit like and subscribe. Follow the MHRT Network so you can get notified when shows like the Cluster Puck Podcast go live. You can also follow us. You can also follow us if you want to at Cluster Puck Avs on Twitter and Instagram, and the Cluster Puck Podcast on Facebook. So don't forget to like and subscribe. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started then. So there's a couple things we wanted to bring up today. The first one, as you can tell kind of by today's title, is Erik Johnson. Now, the only reason I say this is because that's going to play into our cap a little bit. And this is, I tend to find this to be a pretty accurate report, but this is the report from Evan Rowell of Colorado Hockey Now that says that from his report, Erik Johnson, defenseman, is not considering retirement. So that brings up two things. Since he's not choosing to retire, let's paint this picture here.
Yeah, so my ideal situation of him retiring and riding off into the sunset.
Exactly. That's kind of what all of us were anticipating to have happen, I guess, or maybe, I don't know, but
yeah, I mean, he was longest tenured.
He is the longest tenured Avsman. Yep, that's exactly right. So the question then comes up: does he stay with Colorado? And that'll open up a two-part question. Or does he test the free agency market, being where he's at? Because right now, you've seen this happen with Zdeno Chara has done this, Joe Thornton has done this, those types of players where they have played all their time with one team. They've done what they needed to do. And then right toward the last year, maybe two of their careers, they will either make the choice of staying for just a really, really cheap price or trying some other team.
Right. Then you either chase a cup or you chase cash. And EJ's got his cup. So the question becomes, does he want the cash or does he want the sanctity of retiring as a Colorado Avalanche, which honestly, we've probably kept him and played him longer than we should have because we do value him. He's very, very cherished. I know I use the term locker room guy a lot, but
he really is.
Hockey is a locker room sport and it's a very valuable thing. He is essentially worshipped. I mean, you guys have seen the pictures of him in bed with the cup. I mean, he's a phenomenal human being. He's very handsome. He's very funny. He's just loved.
He's the toothless wonder, man.
Yes. I always tell people it's so funny. Like at the beginning of the career, do you remember when he used to do all of his interviews like this? And he would
he'd always have his bottom teeth.
Does that guy have like a limp lip and then it's like and then it's funny because by the end of his career he's like, I don't have anything to prove. He's walking those pictures.
I don't care. Yep.
And he's got his teeth out now. He's got his container like hanging out of his mouth, and it's like he knows he's attractive. So he's there's no bashful little EJ anymore. But he had kind of a tremulous start to his career, which, even though I would consider him a highly successful player, it's been a recurring theme throughout EJ's career. And what is that theme, Nick?
He can't seem to finish a season healthy.
And generally in things completely out of his control. It's not like he pulls his knee and hurts the same ACL. It's he breaks a foot. Was it his femur that he was?
I think he's broken a femur. He's broken a foot. I think he's broken a knee, or like dislocated knee or something like that. He's like wrists and arms, and obviously his teeth are all gone.
And that's what I say is he has given his body to the sport entirely, to the Colorado Avalanche entirely. I mean, he has sacrificed. I don't know. Did you see anyone else on their back or stomach as often as you did EJ last year?
No. Whether if it means he's getting hit or hitting someone, he was always on the ice, body on the ice.
He'll sacrifice anything, but that also, we saw that even more so last year, because as we've seen, even when he is healthy, the feet aren't there. He's not aging well in the position that he needs to be taking, which is that of a more Jack Johnson type, a conservative, know your role. Your role is that you are conservative. EJ thinks he's got the legs that he doesn't. So while it would be physically painful to see him go somewhere else, do you think that's what is it going to come down to keep him or to let him sail?
Well, so let's look at the two options though. So let's say you keep him. Mm-hmm. Okay. What is his purpose going to be, right? Because that the Avalanche need defense still, right? It's not like they still need someone.
Especially
However,
with discussions of losing Devon Toews. I mean,
exactly. There's been those discussions of Toews and even Girard of leaving, right? So you need to shore up your defense.
One of our top defenses, something's going to happen. We're not going to go in with the crew that we have.
Exactly. So assume you sign him, right? He's a guaranteed third pairing if he even gets to play.
Yeah.
Right. So you sign him, and he was making $6 million a year.
Yeah.
Right.
So more than Nathan McKinnon for the
more than Nathan McKinnon for quite a while. Yes. So he's making $6 million. There is absolutely no way he's making that again. Right.
Where do you think he tops out at? As what would you?
$1 million.
$1 million.
I think he tops it at $1 million. I think he takes like a veteran minimum.
And what do you think for longevity for that? Is he going year to year, 2 years?
I think it's a year to year type deal, just because with exactly what you said. Say he injures himself again. Say something happens to him again, at which it typically, the trend has shown that it will. Yeah. Who's to say that injury could be one that actually does end his career, right? One that actually could be a life-altering.
Would be. I was shocked he was able to come back and play. While not great, I was shocked he was able to play within 5 weeks of breaking his foot. I mean, it's honestly incredible. So
let's say he does play on that third pairing, right? What is he going to be able to do? And we've discussed he is a hard hitter. He bodies people, in and out of the way. He'll play the puck. He's not afraid to play hockey. That's his passion. That's what he likes to do, apart from horse racing, obviously. But the big thing, my big concern is being able to keep up. Because he's old, but I'm not saying he's slow by any stretch of the imaginations, but he is a slower guy.
Yes, but you have to play that game, and he hasn't learned to play that game.
Yep.
I don't know. I asked you earlier if you had listened to DNVR today. They said that for PK, he is in the 11th percentile on the penalty kills. So, and that's comes down a lot to a speed thing. Getting burned. We saw many a time where people were getting breakaways like you should not see in the NHL at the pace that they have been. And we got saved a lot with our goaltending this year, but it's simply something that can't happen. And the 11th percentile means nearly 90% of the NHL. And when you consider on defense who you can hide, it's really bad. That means there's a lot of way worse players that are doing better. So it's bad.
Yeah. And like I said, with his age, his speed, that's my question. I don't, I don't think a year is going to make a lot of difference,
Mhm.
but the game is constantly getting younger and faster every season, right? So it's not a matter of his speed staying, it's a matter of is it enough to keep up with all these younger generations? Like you see
Yeah.
Cale Makar, you see Trevor
Well,
Zegras,
and
you
our
see all
division
those.
specifically is getting better.
Oh
I mean,
yeah,
our
yeah.
these rebuilds all around us, we've been pretty blessed to be surrounded by rebuilds, and they're not rebuilding much longer. Most of these teams, it might be a
There,
lot
yeah, there's
for us.
essentially there. So let's again, I don't know if that's going to be that lucrative for the Avalanche to take on that type of a role. Now that being said, because he was a long tenured guy, because he gave all kinds of commitment and loyalty to the Avalanche, I
Mhm.
think that is obviously grounds enough to re-sign him. But it's going to be difficult to see him getting any better than he did a few seasons ago, where he
No,
actually had
no.
a few goals and stuff like
I
that.
think that he will be benefiting greatly from an extended off season. This is the
Mhm.
longest off season we've had with like the COVID year, the
Mhm.
bubble. It seemed like everything came super fast. So, but the thing is, and you're a child. You're not old like me yet, I don't think. But the older you get, the slower you heal. It takes longer and things linger. I can tell you when it's gonna rain because my knee gets tight and
The knee.
I get headaches from wearing a helmet that's like a teeny bit too tight. So it's harder to heal when you're older, but excuse me, for one more year, maybe this off season is enough. Oh,
Mhm.
yeah, it's obviously dry here, but I think that if we were going to do one more year, I wouldn't hate it. I see him
Mhm.
more as a number 7.
Yeah.
I don't know if he could
And
even make it as a third pairing defenseman.
yeah, and that might just be it, is his role could be he's kind of mentoring whoever his pairing is.
Right.
He's kind of using it for lecture and, teaching. And maybe he won't get a ton of playing time, and there might even be a good number of games where he just simply gets scratched.
Yeah, and
Or
that's what it was briefly discussed that the ability to keep him may hinge on somehow eliminating McDermott's contract, which would put him
Mhm.
in more of a position. We do clearly value McDermott, though, that able to play forward and defense, even if not very well at either, is something of value to them because we have
Mhm.
kept him and we've paid him, I think, almost $2 million, haven't we? Which is whatever it is. We
Over
signed
these last couple seasons, yeah, just about.
so if we were able to eliminate McDermott, it's scary having him on that 6-7 position though, because he would essentially be a stand-in for injuries.
Mhm.
When you consider as often as Makar got hurt, as often as Byram has issues with Manson's impending health issues,
Mhm.
can we take someone with health issues to be our stand-in for health issues? Or do we just bring up a prospect or a Jack Johnson who's proven he can stay healthy very well?
Yeah. Yeah. I wonder though if he actually does do that, because yeah, I'm of the opinion that I would take Jack Johnson or not, I'm sorry, Eric Johnson to fill in holes wherever they need patching on the defense instead of a prospect. The only reason I say that is because Eric Johnson's got years upon years of experience, so he knows
And it
what
is
to
the locker
do
room
as far
aspect.
as
He
exactly.
doesn't
So,
have
and
to
he's
be
got that
led
captain mentality. He's been alternate captain for who knows how many
years. Yep.
years.
I think since
And
he was here, I mean, it's been a long time.
somewhere around, like, just a long, long time. So I would still take Eric Johnson as a patch guy, even though his
Mhm.
health is sometimes not the most iffy. But if, say, Mikhail Makar is out for 2 weeks or Sam Girard's out for a month or whatever, I think he is able to play to a point where he could fill that gap long
Right.
enough
Maybe
for
with the
them to get
limited minutes,
healthy.
he can stay healthy.
Even with the limited minutes, I think he could. I think he could be healthy enough.
So yeah, and that'll just kind of come down to what is he looking for out of this season? Does he want minutes? Does he want a little bit of extra pay to get him through his
Yeah.
later years longer? or does he want just to be around the gang? I'd like to see him, if he does stay with the Avs, I pray that he retires, and I see him as a front office staff person at some point.
Oh, yeah.
But the thing is if we say we'll pay you $1 million, you might not play that much. And Anaheim says, hey, we've got some new dudes coming. You've got a house in Southern California. Why don't you just, we'll pay you $3 million. Like, we got to hit the cap floor. Or something like LA. They were talking about, he is from Minnesota, which I would punch a wall if Minnesota. It would just be super.
I don't know if I'd like that.
There's teams. I mean, Chicago, all of these rebuilding teams, they can afford to pay him. I mean, they could pay him $3 million if they wanted to.
Arizona could throw 10 at him for all that we know,
Right. And that's what, do you want to win, or do you want to play, or do you want to be around your dudes? We'll just kind of see, where his priority lies. He's not old. Moving isn't going to be super hard on him. It's not like he's planted, but he's not stuck. And I guess, so it's, I don't know. It'll be interesting. We'll see. But I would like to see him. And I might regret that next year if he does come back and we see the same stuff. But that kind of just takes us into our next topic, is just free agents in general. So, if we were to lose someone like him, that opens up free spots. So our next two topics, we've got free agents and trades. So we'll go into free agents first. There's different ways to acquire people, but with free agents, we don't have to trade things to get them. So I feel like that's a market that we're going to have to assess really hard, as we do lack assets. Something I hadn't considered before, an asset that the Avs, and this is Evan was also discussing, when you consider free agents, an asset we can utilize is our, what's it called? The salary retention slots. So I think that goes into like LTIR stuff. So people who have to dump LTIR, dead contracts, like the Shea Weber kind of stuff. Those are assets that we do have, but that would mean, we'd have to work with teams who need to fill those. But yeah, so free agents, talk to me. I know that I keep saying the free agent over and over again, but have you changes, or what are you thinking for, I mean, obviously people are looking at that second line center, but for free agents, it's probably a good idea to look at filling the other holes so that we don't have to trade assets to fill smaller holes.
So let me start then on defense, right? So we have Cale Makar, and I'm going to assume Taves stays, right? So we got our top pairing. I'm going to assume Bo Byram and Sammy Girard stay, and I'm going to assume that both Johnsons are gone.
Yeah.
So we need to fill a bottom pairing, and or could slide into the second line of the pairing. So there was one name that it was randomly thrown out there in a mock signing. And that one comes in the name of John Klingberg.
Mm-hmm. You mean the Avalanche John Klingberg?
The very one, yes. Now, it was interesting to me because I'm like, okay, he is like, 6 years younger than Eric Johnson. He's 30. Mm-hmm. He may or may not command a lot of money because he's kind of in the last era of his
journeyman, hasn't he?
He has, because I remember he went from the one that I remember was Dallas to Anaheim to Minnesota.
Yeah.
He was being paid $4.25, and I don't think he, in my opinion, has lived up to that type of a hype. So maybe you can get him for,
he might get a nosedive.
3. Yeah, maybe like a 3, or maybe even like a 2.75, something like that. But at the same time, it is very difficult for me to see how Klingberg could fit in the Avalanche roles, as how Bednar plays his system, unless he is specifically there to be the enforcer, the big body, kind of like how Big Z was when we had him, Zadorov. Yeah, so it was an option. It could be fun to see what happens. But at the same time, I'm not entirely sure where that could fit. It would be interesting if the Avs did go in that route, though.
Yeah, it is. It is interesting, especially when you consider his career trajectory, like having played with the Dallas Stars for like 7 or 8 years, and the Wild and the Ducks, the teams that he played for, essentially play nothing like the Avs. Like the Dallas system is essentially the I can't even think of the word, like the antithesis of the Avs. It's like a bog down and just crush, as opposed to a storm ahead and take command. So it's very interesting. But I've always said, like, there's a couple of those guys, and Klingberg's definitely one of them. That's like, well, if we can't beat him, can we just sign him? Like, because he has always been a pain in our neck, and that's what I've said. I said that about John Gibson for the longest time too, because he always.
Well, and it could be that maybe on that defense, maybe you need someone like that, because the Avalanche are not known for being the most physical. They're not the ones who constantly initiate the fighting. So maybe you get someone like that, because like for example, when McDermott's on the ice, there's like very little fighting, unless he is literally socking a guy in the mouth with an actual fight. There's like
and at least
0 to none,
it's a lot more responsible and getting a little more offensive output, a little more actual hockey out of him than McDermott. As much as I love McDermott, he certainly was a sore point every minute that he was on the ice. This year was not, the penalties were not worth the value of the the intimidation factor. And if Josh Manson continues with his path that he's had through his entire career so far, being injured, it'd be nice to take a little bit of that weight off of him to be the entire brunt of the Avs, So I like that a lot, especially if people aren't really interested, and you could get him for 2.5, 3, not even long term. If he's just going to be a journeyman, that's what you're going to do. But yeah, I think I like it.
Yep. So the other defensive pair that I thought would be very interesting, and we all know how the Avs love to bring back former players.
Big Z!
Yeah. This one comes in the name of Ryan Graves.
I like that. See, those two are the same plane to me.
Now, Ryan Graves really fit the system nicely, because he was big, he was tall, but he knew how to move the puck around. He did make some kind of boneheaded mistakes here and there, but between him and Jack Johnson, I would take Ryan Graves.
Right.
Because he's much younger. I don't think he fit Jersey's system very well, so I would say bring him. Why not bring him back?
And he's a free agent this year. Is that because
if I'm not mistaken, he is a free agent this year.
Okay.
So I could definitely.
I don't think he left on any ill will. It was like, we got to trade you. We're going to lose you anyways. So I don't think that was a. I don't think there's any bad feelings in there. I love me some Gravy Boy. I love him.
Yep. And like I said, he fit the system so well here. So it was really sad to see him leave. But at the same time, I think him coming back would really shore up that third pairing really, really good. So in some capacity, I would like to see him return. And then I'm going to throw this one out just because one can dream. I want to bring back Tyson Barrie.
Oh, absolutely.
The man, that's in a trade scenario, so I'll talk about it later. But I want him back. And I'll get to the details about it later. But that's who I would say for defense. I don't know, Britt, if you had any other people in mind, or if you want to.
I went way harder on the forwards, just because the defense, I think, is so hit or miss, because it's going to be like, we can make all of these predictions, but then it's kind of like, if this happens, then this, because it's going to hinge so hard on Girard or Taze. If either one of them goes, everything changes. So yeah, I think I love me some Tyson Barrie, and I think Klingberg would be a great addition. Other than that, if we weren't to take someone like those, I'd imagine we'll end up picking up some relatively no-namer in true Sakic McFarland fashion. It's going to be somebody that nobody even considered. It's going to be a Lehkonen type, people are like, oh yeah, he's pretty decent, but only appreciated by their own fan base. So I think you got that good there.
Yep. So as far as forwards go, there have been a lot of names linked as far as free agent pickups go. Yeah. I've heard, we've heard Patrick Kane, we've heard Ryan O'Reilly, but there were a couple that just recently had come out of the woodwork. One of them came in the form of Pierre-Luc Dubois. I want to get your thoughts on that first, to see realistically if that's someone worth pursuing.
I have thought about this, and if it were to ever be discussed like by higher up people, so that it felt more real, that it was even my thing with him is like, I don't know if people really have followed him a whole lot, but there was basically a forced trade to get out of Columbus. And so now he is getting to the point where he's like, what, 25? Is he an unrestricted free agent even? But he's young, and he's basically forced himself out of 2 teams at this point. And last year he was supposed to be traded to the Canadiens, went to the draft in Montreal, anticipating being traded to the Canadiens, and then ended up not. And I just don't know how I feel about a guy who's forced 2 trades before he's 30 years old. And I mean, he's good, but he hasn't lived up to. And there's been times when he wanted his first trade where he literally stopped playing hard, which shockingly he still scored a decent amount of goals. But I don't know about that attitude. And I don't know if it's more sacred to me, in like my mind, how our locker room runs, but we'd have to know if he's got a trade list. So we'd have to know if he'd be willing to waive the trade list or if we're on it. His list is very odd. It's Montreal, obviously. It's like Minnesota. It's very random. I don't know what it comes down to, but he's got a whole lot of potential. But I'd just be curious on what the actual attitude stuff is, which we seem to be good with attitude people. But I don't know how much they're willing to shake up the core. And what will it take? Because does he have 1 year left?
I want to say he is, in fact, a free agent.
Oh, okay. I don't know why I was thinking he was a trade person.
Yep. Let's see here. If I could just check, maybe we'll take a look. He was making 5. I believe he hits the free agent market. Yeah. So yeah, I'm in the same boat as you. If he got, I don't want to say an attitude adjustment, but if he were to commit and really commit to the team, come hell or high water, good or bad seasons, whatever it is, he would be great. He'd be fantastic for the Avalanche. He'd probably fit that 2C spot pretty well. That's my only concern is if he is going to give 100%, right? Because we're no longer the defending Cup champions, right?
Yeah.
But we want to go back to the finals. So is he going to help us along in that journey, or is he not? And right now it's up in the air because I can see ways that he could all of a sudden turn it around and be good, but there's also a path that I can see where he just
does everything have to be exactly how he wants it.
Exactly, where it's like if it's not falling right in line, he doesn't give 100% anymore.
Right. And I don't think that like I don't think that the guys in our locker room are one to tolerate somebody who's not all in, all in. So it'd be painful to see him come and then have him not be worth anything.
Exactly. So a few other free agents that I thought of that would at least fill that 2C role. If not, they could fill other depth positions, and I believe they could play center. The first one that came to mind is Jonathan Drouin of the Montreal Canadiens. Traditionally a center, can play left wing if necessary. His style of play is very like JT Comfort-esque in the sense that if he gets that lane, if he gets that type of a shot, he can create better opportunities around the net and finish plays when there's puck scrambles or stuff like that. That's something that, should JT Comfort move on from the Avalanche, you will need to have. Now, the only difference I think is that Jonathan Drouin can do that more consistently than someone like JT Comfort, who on a contract year could definitely do it, but any other year, no.
I think most of the 2C discussion comes down to, is he better than Comfort, or is he cheap enough that he can be a third and some, you know what I mean? It all comes down to kind of that Comfort comparison, because it's kind of keep him or don't according to what we do for that 2C spot. So
and so the other ones, so I know there's a lot of people. I got a few people that even talked to me that said, well, what about Sean Monahan? What about Alex DeBrincat?
Yeah, that's a weird thing.
What about Timo Meier? Which I kind of like the Timo Meier idea, but that's just me.
Pricey though, isn't he?
That'd be pricey. So I thought, well, what about Timo Meier's teammate Jesper Bratt?
Do you want to have to
his
listen
style.
to Jesper Bratt over and over again?
What's that?
Do you want to have to listen to Biz say Jesper Bratt over and over and
That's
over
exactly
again?
right. I mean, I'm not exactly upset with that, but he's 24, right? He's got a lot of time left on his skates, effectively.
Yeah,
And I have been pleased with what I saw as
for
far
sure.
as what Jesper Bratt has done. He's not like eye popping off the charts, but he is consistent. You know, he's always right there.
Yeah, I
Giving
think
the
he
good
struggled in the
goals.
playoffs a lot, didn't he? I don't know if
Mhm.
he showed up at
Yeah.
all. But Timo Meier also. So
Yeah, he
do you think the
disappeared.
Devils will be selling much with their newfound success, or was that kind of a
Well, I know that they said that Timo Meier has become that he's the one that they want to ignite talks with.
really more so
So,
than
as
Brad?
far as I'm aware, but I could be absolutely wrong in that.
Okay.
But I think Brott would go with the cheaper
He
price,
gave up a lot for Timo Meier, so
and that'd be the only thing is Timo Meier when he was on the Sharks. I mean, top 3, one of the
right.
best players out there.
Yeah.
But then he moved to Jersey and just kind of disappeared. So does that do something to his price? Is Jersey trying to finagle that? You know, what are they trying to offer? So if we could land Timo Meier, that'd be super cool. But I think a really safe option would be Jesper Bratt.
Yeah, I agree.
So
the main one that I've been like really thinking on, I had Dubois on my thing too, with the obvious issues. Been really hot on Lindholm lately. I'm curious. Yeah. So they, with their new coaching hire, they promoted their assistant, and a lot what I've been reading and interpreting and assuming myself is that he's just gonna kind of be the fall guy for a rebuild here not too long. I think that they're in too deep altogether, which maybe we can just have Kadri back. I don't know.
There you go.
Because if this guy, their assistant that they hired, they're not planning on going back, you know, for a deep run like everybody anticipated. I mean, they were one of the favorites to win the cup much of this year. So yeah, the way I see it is with them hiring him, that says that this way at the end of this year they can fire him and say nobody can do it and do a soft rebuild. And I don't know if they do that around Kadri, but Lindholm, he's got a year left. He's at $4.85 million. I don't know,
which is very solid.
It is
for what his production has been.
Exactly, and he's just very stable. And I don't know what it would take in a trade if we'd have to lose something that hurts, but we might have to lose something that hurts a little bit in order to prioritize that 2C spot, because you can fill a wing position with randos a lot easier than that 2C spot, which is one of the hardest positions to fill in the NHL, because if you're a 2C, you could probably be a 1C somewhere else. So it's a constant shuffle of, once you're good enough to be the 2C, pretty soon you'll be bad enough to be the 1 or move down. So I like Lindholm too. I don't know if we have a history of really doing much with Calgary, or if, I don't know. I think he's a good option.
Yeah. And I mean, look who's going to be between, right? Most likely it's going to be Lehkonen and Nichushkin, or Lehkonen Rodriguez Nichushkin, 2 of those 3 players. That style of play that he gets, he's very quick, very nimble, but powerful, right? Which I think would go really hand in hand with, let's say you took Lehkonen and Nichushkin. Those guys are forecheckers for days. Like they can muscle person off a puck in the offensive zone for hours. You put that together with Lindholm, who can create stuff out of nothing effectively, and that second line is going to be, best 3 skaters on the ice whenever they're paired up against another person's second line.
The thing is, if we have a relatively healthy lineup up and down the line, we don't need the best 2C in the NHL like we got out of Kadri last year. We need a serviceable 2C. We can't be having a barely capable 2C who's playing with should-be third wing line, or third line wingers. If everything else falls into balance, we can do well with a decent enough 2C, and having Lindholm would make it feel a lot more like last, the Stanley Cup, where we had above average on every single position at all times.
He would definitely bring that Kadri spirit, like you said, back, because Kadri was like the best second C you could
Right.
ever ask for.
Yeah.
He was often one of the highest scorers on the team. In
Would have
fact,
been
he
a
was
one
one of the
C
highest
on
scorers.
nearly any other team.
Exactly. So I think for Lindholm, I think that's in my opinion, it is a home run.
But what would
put
it
it.
take? And I don't know if that's the
That's
thing
the
is,
hard part.
it would be nice to sign him with only 1 year left, knowing that he had intentions to resign, which it would, even if we could get through 1 year, and then once we know what the cap is going up next year, that makes it a lot more swallowable if you can plan on signing them for more. That might be one of those, like, do we sacrifice Taze? Because we're probably going to lose Taze next year. A Taze or a Gerard or a New Hook. I don't know. It might take a lot, but we'll see.
Yeah, I think it would be worth it in the end, just because I don't know if necessarily for Taves, but maybe for Gerard, because I mean, look at what happened with that Kadri trade. Is we gave up Tyson Barrie, who was a very fine defenseman in and of itself with the Avalanche. He held records that only Cale Makar is just now breaking, right?
Yep.
But in return, we got a forward that ended up being our production effectively, together with obviously everybody else. But he contributed in a big way.
Yeah.
If we do something like a Gerard for Lindholm and maybe a couple picks, then yeah, it's going to sting a little bit. But at the same time, look what happened on our defensive shoring. We ended up with Bo Byram.
Right.
You
We
know,
have
like
the most stacked defense on a healthy day in
exactly.
the NHL, truly.
So really, for that to happen, I'm not as upset, but it's still going to be a question of fitting in, how to now get the new defenseman in place or something like that. So there's going to have to be a couple of triggers that have to be pulled in order for that trade to effectively polish itself on the defensive end. But at the same time, like I said, I feel like the lack of production from that 2C, it would be worth it to do.
Yeah, and that's I feel like we have more freedom in lowering our defense to raise our offense as opposed to trying to ride with a lacking offense. Especially if we continue to see some issues with Makar and Taze not providing offense like they had in prior year. We'd be better off stacking up our actual offense and letting the D ride out and just play defense a little more so. I had like a small list of just kind of randoms. I know a lot of people are hot on Schmaltz. He's still at 3 years for $5.85 mil. But one of the issues that I just see people not talking about is he's continually performed better at wing. He's not a bona fide center, so he may struggle greatly at second line center, because that's just, it's kind of an odd, it's a hard position. It's one of the harder spots. Kuznetsov has been thrown out there. He's making like 7.8 mil. It's a lot of money. They'd have to retain
I just feel like that might be too out of the price range.
Yeah. Obviously, Nylander's still out there. One that I saw that I thought was pretty interesting is Ross Colton from Tampa. He's got a 1.25 qualifying offer from Tampa. He is a restricted free agent. He's mostly played wing, but that might be one of those. I just don't know if we're willing to gamble on the second lane center again. But I mean, if you get him for just above $1 million and you hit, then but I don't know if we're willing to risk that again with how that went this year. But would the New Hook risk have worked out okay if everyone else around him could have been moderately healthy? I think it could have.
It really could have. Yep. And there's a lot of things with the whole New Hook conversation, is that a lot of stuff around him does influence him on how he performs.
I think that he is greatly swayed by the vibes or whatever.
Oh yeah. So no, definitely. I mean, like you said, Nylander, that's been a discussion, but that's going to be a hefty give.
$7 million
something like that.
Year, not guaranteed.
Yeah, like that would replace Landeskog, and that's it for the year. So it's like, maybe it's a Band-Aid. It could be a great Band-Aid, but it'd still be a Band-Aid nonetheless.
Yeah.
So, but still very good options. So, I mean, something that we can continue to monitor are all these trades. And the very last one, like I said, is Tyson Barrie. I just feel like him being able to quarterback the power play would be the most phenomenal thing, because you saw what he did on Edmonton and he had Draisaitl and McDavid in tow. And that power play quickly became the best power play when it was him quarterbacking and those two scoring. Well, look at us. We've got not only McKinnon, we have Rantanen. We
Right.
could grab name here: Rodriguez, Nichushkin, Comfer,
Yeah, which I don't know
like,
if we've discussed, just to throw it out there super quick. They did come out and say that Nichushkin is cleared to play. There's been no investigation.
Yes. Yep.
There's no criminal investigation, no NHL investigation, which makes me think, why the heck can't we just, even if they said he
Hear the story.
program, you don't need to tell me that he's like doing this drug specifically with this person in this bathroom. Just something that's like, because
just a quick little rundown.
Yeah, it's going to be a lingering thought. How is he with the team? His wife posted a picture of them like leisurely strolling in Russia or something, shopping. I don't know. It was an odd thing, but they made a point to come out during the State of the Union that he's totally cleared.
Yep.
So the team's not mad at him supposedly, but also who knows what's actually going on. I don't know. We'll see. But Nuke, as far as what's being projected, should be back. No issues. No.
That is correct.
Yep. And maybe a good long off season has done him some good. So hopefully he's feeling mentally, physically, whatever, which is kind of a relief and also kind of scary at the same time. So we'll see.
That's exactly right. So anyway, so with Tyson Barrie, going back to him, is I just feel like he played his best productive wise and even defense wise when he was on the Avalanche. And that's something that it could replace Gerard, no problem.
Yeah.
In my opinion, he is older. Yes.
Coming back older, more tenured though. And that's the thing with Graves too, is Tyson Barrie made some odd decisions, which decisions stand out a lot when you're a defenseman, because you get burned. And you see
because of you that the offense has the puck.
But maybe coming back with a little better mental, older, making better decisions, better choices, better understanding of the game. Defense generally are going to age better than offense if they stay healthy. And I think Tyson Barrie would love to be back here, especially with the turmoil that they seem to.
He never sold his house. He still comes back here.
I think he's still completely entwined with the team. I mean, it's almost, I don't think that he's separated.
They're his best friends. Yeah, he likes this place. Every time, either Nashville now or back in the day, Edmonton or Toronto, whenever they were here, he would go to Avs practice and chat it up with the boys. And, it is painstakingly obvious that he misses this place.
Yeah, and he was one of the best-selling jerseys. Every week can just whip back out.
And he was.
Jerseys.
Yep. So the only question that comes back is if let's say we do sign him from some miracle, does he take away Bill Byram's number 4, or does he get a new number? 22, I think, is what he's been at.
I don't know.
I'd like for him to go back to 4 because that's what I remember him as. But Bo Byram has kind of made a little name for himself in that number 4. So that's kind of the...
Bo is such a polarizing, person. You just love him so much, and then everything around him is so controversial and stressful. But somehow, after only watching him play 12 games with the Avs, we're all in on Bo Byram. We all care about every single aspect of his life. Yeah, it's that would be really interesting. It's always interesting to see how some people are super attached to that stuff, and some people are like, that was the only jersey that was left, so I've just been wearing that since I was 9.
There you go. Okay, so we'll keep an eye on the free agents and the trades as they come up. I believe July 1st is when free agency officially opens. So
yeah, we should see a flurry right before that.
We should see
with no trades
and trades for picks and stuff like that, because just a few days before is the draft, which we'll be able to talk about next week, even for some maybe prospects or something like that. But for right now, we'll move into another little question, and that comes in the form of the Denver Nuggets. As we speak, Game 5 of the NBA Finals between the Nuggets and Heat is going on. They've just started. It looks like they're about 5 minutes in, so nothing too terrible. But here's a question I pose to you, and we can make this pretty quick. Does the Avs' success from them winning the Stanley Cup, has that bled into the other Denver sports, specifically the Denver Nuggets?
I kind of talked to you about this earlier, so I'll just make it concise for this week, because next week I kind of wanted to dive into it a little bit more. I was telling you about, I think that it's all kind of like a cyclical thing. I think that the Cronkies have developed, and I talked to my dad and my brother about this, like a system or a recipe for success. And that is patience with players, general managers,
Yes.
all around staff in general. They have shown patience to draft prospects. Our biggest talents have come from homegrown. And I think that those things coming from the top down, and then when you mix it with the hype last year and we come into a hot Nuggets this year, I think the fans are jazzed, and I think that feeds into just the championship mentality. I think it helps a lot. I think that especially you got to wonder if the Avs being done early this year kind of helped the Nuggets, because people are like, well, let's move on to our next championship team. And that's people are putting every ounce of energy into the Nuggets. And we remember what it felt like last year to win. So let's do it again. I'm not nearly as passionate about the Nuggets, but I'm certainly super excited for them. And I think it starts at the Kroenke. I think they give, because it's not just the Avs and the Nuggets that are successful. They're successful in everything they do. And it does come down to letting the process work and trusting your process in combination with having a correct process has worked very well for them.
Yep. I would 100% agree with what you said. And I'm only going to draw a couple parallels here, but you look at the Nuggets team and you look at the Avalanche team, they have their superstars, right? They're Jokic and McKinnons. And then they have their next superstars, their Jamal Murray's and their Mikko Rantanen's / Gabe Landeskog / Cale Makar's, right? Yep. But then that supporting cast, especially from like last year, you take a look at it and we had depth that could score. We had defense that was rocking. We had goaltending that was solid. You look at the Nuggets team and they have almost the same exact type of style where they made some moves from the offseason that gave them some depth. And so for them to be able to kind of mimic what the Avalanche had done and to see that has taken them to what could be by the end of today, as we're recording it, a championship. I would like to think that for sure there was essence of Avalanche on that, because the same ownership group, so same mentality.
Filling your holes with sensibility while giving your superstars time to develop into. One thing is like when you listen to podcasts, and I know you do, but I follow most of the NHL, and I'm always shocked at how little the Avs are talked about. But when you think about it, we just don't have the drama. We don't hastily fire people. We don't have people quitting on us. I mean, we essentially just roll with the same crew until you have like people that move up and out simply because they're too good. They're outperforming their position, and the Avs are basically just raising people to go do better things. And as much as you hate to lose them, with our Eagles coach, that's a good thing. If you're producing people that go up and out as opposed to getting fired or, just following the same trails, we're very, very resilient with our employees, our front and on ice staff.
Yep. And keep in mind, I'm from Utah. I'm a Jazz fan, right? And I've been just beyond thrilled with what this Nuggets team has done. Even though they're our Rocky Mountain rival or whatever you want to call them, I love both teams, right? I think they've both been fantastic. So to see what this team has done, I would like to give at least some credit to the Avalanche for inspiring them to make this roster work. And so hopefully by the time this podcast is done, we're taking off to watch the Nuggets game and whatnot, and hopefully there's a second championship in Denver in 2 years. So that'll be fun. Okay. We're going to move into a new segment that we're going to try to do over the summer while there's a kind of a lull and things to do, that we're going to call Hockey 101. So as a lot of you listening may know, hockey is not the most popular sport in the United States. However, it is quite popular, but there are a lot of people that don't know exactly how the game is played, or what the rules are, or any kind of lingo, or any stuff like that. So Brit and I are going to try a segment called Hockey 101 that we want to try to teach you the basic setup, structure, and pace of the game of hockey.
Yeah.
So
hockey, we kind of talked about it. I think one of the most valuable things about hockey is that you can turn it on and have no idea what it is, what's going on. And it's still really interesting to watch.
It's very entertaining.
Really grasp what's going on. And you'll have somebody that's been watching hockey regularly and enjoying it. And then once you start getting a little bit passionate, that's when you start getting pissed off. Like, why did they just blow the whistle on this, should have been a goal, blah, blah, blah. And that's where you'll find out that sometimes you don't know what offsides is until you're already emotionally invested in a game. So we can just go through these, we'll be super quick at the end, but just little stuff. And I'm kind of trying to pick out some interesting random tidbits for rules and stuff. But yeah, it's a game that you can watch without knowing the rules and really you don't need them, but it just gets better once you do.
But exactly, once you do, then it just kind of becomes a bug where you catch the bug and now you can't stop. Okay, so let's pull up a little ice rink here. So today in Hockey 101, lesson 1, we're going to talk about the rink itself, what all these lines mean, and effectively what they do, what they prevent, what they encourage, all that kind of stuff. Now, keep in mind, there are a couple of lines missing. There should be a little diagonal one there, and same thing on the opposite side. So let's go ahead and start in the middle here. That is the main face-off circle. That's where periods will begin. That's where after a goal, you will have another face-off. All your main face-offs will come from that circle right there. There are only 2 players that are allowed to enter it with the referee, and those are whoever takes the face-off. You are not allowed to encroach inside the circle if you are a player that is not taking the face-off. That is also going to be applicable with these 4 face-off circles in their respective zones as well. Next, Brit, let's see. Do you want to talk about the red lines here? Let's talk about these 3 red lines.
Yep. So the center line is essentially what it sounds like. It is the center of the ice. It is, so we're going to go into next week into offsides and icing, but it's kind of the groundwork. It lays the groundwork for icing. You cannot shoot the puck past 2 lines. So the center line will be used more down the road, but essentially it's just down the middle of the ice. And then down at the 2 ends, I keep wanting to point at my computer, like you guys can see that. So those 2 red lines on the farthest ends of the ice, they're each called the goal line. And as you can imagine, that is the determining factor inside the net for if the puck crosses it, then it's a goal. So that is literally what it is. The puck has to cross the entire line. So there has to be white between the puck and the goal line in order to be called a goal. So if you see a goal called off or being reviewed and there's weird camera angles, it's usually trying to figure out if the entire puck crossed that entire line within the net. And it's incredible to me that at this point, we don't have a camera that can somehow that clearly, no matter where the goalie's butt is, it's very, very interesting. So then beyond the net, the goal line within the net, there is the full length of the ice, short ways. It's the determining factor for the trapezoid markers. So if you see, you can picture where Nick's thing there is moving, his pointer. The trapezoid is essentially the trapezoid into this crease. So the blue spot, those are kind of the goalie's special areas. So the trapezoid behind the net in the 90s, hockey went crazy and they basically the neutral zone trap just changed. All the styles, the systems changed, and they ended up destroying the game of hockey because they got too good at controlling all of these systems. So there just wasn't enough goals. There was a goal drought. They ended up doing all kinds of new things. They limited goalie pad sizing. They limited a whole bunch of stuff just so that they could create more goals. So essentially they wanted to make life harder for the goalies. Well, there was goalies that were almost as good as skaters at coming out, shooting the puck, passing it all the way down to the other side of the ice. As long as they stayed on sides, goalies were getting as many assists as anyone. And so they made this trapezoid so that the goalie, if they're not in their crease or behind the net in that trapezoid, they cannot handle the puck. So that's going, stick handling, and then making a pass out of the zone or on the way out of the zone. They have to be making a save to touch it outside of that area. So basically it limited how much offense could come from just a goalie. So the rest of your team is compelled to come in deeper and actually play the puck. And then, so that blue spot in front of the line, that's the crease. You'll hear a lot of discussion about what should be allowed, what has been allowed. It's changed off and on. The rules have changed. At one point, you couldn't touch the puck in the crease at all, or it was a no goal. There are many big controversial calls over rules that have changed with that. At this point, once the puck has entered the crease, then you can play the puck within the crease. You can't interfere with the goalie. It's basically the goalie's sacred space. It's kind of their safe zone. If you plow the goalie or interfere with their ability while not trying to play the puck, you're going to get called for a goalie interference. And honestly, goalie interference is probably the most subjective and argued.
It's so annoying sometimes.
It's definitely anybody whose goalie is getting touched thinks that it was goalie interference, and anybody who's touching the other person's goalie says they were playing the puck. So you'll hear more arguments over this penalty than essentially, because there is no definitive black and white, not even like anything close to black and white. And it just kind of comes down to what the refs saw, what they're feeling for the game, who they owe a penalty to, how absolutely insanely dramatic the goalie decides to be at that time you'll hear a lot. So that crease, just remember, the crease is sacred and everything is argued within it. So
that's exactly right. Okay, next two are these blue lines here, the giant blue lines. Now you can see here there's something that says defending zone, neutral zone, and attacking zone. So assuming our team, the Avs, are playing that way, trying to score into this net, you will have three distinct zones. This back zone here, where our own goalie sits, is the defensive zone. You have the neutral zone, which resides between both blue lines, and you have the attacking zone, which is the net you're trying to score into effectively. So these
also
offensive zone is another name for the attacking zone. That is correct. So there are many things that you can and cannot do within each of these zones. Some of them would include a hand pass. Some of them include offsides. Others, and you'll hear this a lot of back checking and forechecking. Back checking is what happens in the defensive zone when you're trying to get the puck back into your possession. Attacking zone or offensive zone, you'll hear forechecking, which is you're trying to get the puck back after losing it in your offensive zone, effectively. So we'll get into this a little bit more next week as far as offsides and icing, but the offsides call especially relies on these blue lines. So keep in mind what the blue lines will be for next week, and then we'll get into offsides, icing, like I said. Let's see, the 4 face-off dots here, they're going to be just like the face-off dots you see here. The only difference is because of offsides or puck going into the crowd or whatever it is, mishandling, there might be some occasional times where the face-off comes out of your attacking zone or your defensive zone or whatever.
Yeah, they generally correlate with, if it's not an offsides or something that has a direct face-off dot that it's attained to, the dots are used for whatever random thing the whistle is blown for. You just go to the closest dot on the exact side. So they're there for specific situations. And then also the inside dots within the neutral zone, those are for establishing usually when the defending team was the bad guy or the offensive guy was the bad guy. So if you did something wrong, then you go outside of your offensive zone. If you did something right, then you're inside the offensive zone.
Yep, that is correct. So other than that, I believe we have discussed everything on the ice.
Avatar super quick. Avatar asked about Wah coming back as a coach, which is like, I'm curious if Avatar's still here, what team he would think he was going to, because there's been quite a few talks. He was a talk for Calgary, which is super weird.
I heard the discussion, and this came from my wife, obviously, but the Rangers is a team that I heard.
I'm curious to see, and maybe he's earned that back, the discussions within his crew, because his team just won, I can't think, Grizzly? What was he? I always want to say Grizzlies. Is a G something. But he's been very successful in his coaching. But I'm curious to see who wants to take a risk on a guy that walked out on his team like 2 weeks before training camp, burned the most sacred bridge that he has on a team that put up with, while he was very good, he was also a very, very hard to agree with guy. So
polarizing, yeah.
I've gone back and forth on whether I love him or hate him. I come down to I appreciate the things that he brought my team. But yeah, we'll see. I'm curious on his, maybe he'll have a redemption time. I don't know. Because there was talks that he anticipated possibly taking that GM position. So for the Avs, which I'm sure they're not so keen on that.
Maybe, but yeah, we'll have to see. So Yeah, let us know in the comments below as far as maybe other free agent pickups or trades that you'd like to see happen. Don't forget to give us your opinion. We definitely love your feedback. So, okay, well, I believe that's going to wrap it up for this episode. Britt, I don't know if you have anything else to add.
No, let's go catch Nuggets. Watch them win.
Let's go watch them. Let's
Hopefully
go watch
we'll
the
have some
Nuggets
big
win a
news next
championship.
week. We'll trade that first round pick. We might come back next week with we may be making our bombshell trade.
Maybe. We'll have to see what happens. But thank you once again, everybody, for following, watching along with us. We really enjoy talking hockey with you guys, especially with the Colorado Avalanche. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe. Follow the MHRT Network so you can get notified when shows just like us go live. You can follow the MHRT Network on YouTube, on Twitter, I think we have an Instagram. I think we have Twitch. We have a lot of stuff. And then if you want to follow this show specifically, you can follow us at the Cluster Puck Avs on Twitter and Instagram. I'm just talking too fast. I'm hearing a lot of this for the first time myself. We're really and then Facebook at the Cluster Puck Podcast. Okay, I believe that's going to do it. So let's go watch the Nuggets. Let's go watch the Nuggets win and follow the great footsteps of the wonderful Colorado Avalanche. And as always, go Avs, go.
Even when you feel low, you can still go. Even when you feel slow, you can still go. Even when there's no hope, you can still go. I never answer to no, man, I still go. Go, 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 go. Hustle hard, hustle every single day.